I've been looking forward to this one. As you know, I'm a fan of Vitor's Marvel and DC fan games. Recently, he released a new and improved version of Marvel Infinity War publicly. I've covered the older version already, and when I heard that the newest version was going to be released publicly, I got very excited, and I can tell you right now, he did not disappoint. So what's new? Well, first off, the modes. There are 3 modes: Story Mode, Museum Mode, and Danger Room, which is unlocked after story completion. Starting with Story Mode, Adam Warlock and his swooshy hair informs us of an unknown approaching threat, but in order to combat it, we need to gather each flavour of the Infinity Stones. How many heroes answer the call? 100 of them! Technically, it depends on what you define as a character. You know how, in some games, where they boast that they've got over 80 playable characters and 10 of them are the same character in different forms? Well, that's kind of the same here. The playable roster has increased massively and is composed of both hero and villains, allowing you and 3 other players to play as any canon, dream, or absurd team of your choosing. Each of the characters have their own moveset as well as unique features. Examples include Red Hulk, who starts off as Colonel Ross and then can transform into Red Hulk with enough energy, and Vinnie Jones, Juggernaut, being able to knock people over by running into them. There is no shortage of characters to try out, and you're guaranteed to find more than one favourite, and more than one hated character. While the characters differ in strengths, weaknesses and builds, which players will subjectively favour or avoid, there are a small number of characters who just feel bad to play. My personal most hated character is the angry trash panda Rocket Raccoon. His moveset feels impractical for a beat 'em up game, and he feels like he's built more to be in a Contra style game. True, he can cheese some bosses, but without at least one ally to assist, regular fights can be quite difficult. Some of the characters do feel a little underpowered, and possibly in some cases overpowered. Most of the characters feel balanced enough, but with the characters like Quicksilver, who is fast as all buggery, makes him a great option for players who favour speed, as he's very hard for enemies to hit. Yes, he's overpowered, but it works because of who it is. The same can't be said for characters like Juggernaut. Now remember how Juggernaut was supposed to be so unstoppable? Well, did you know that he's so unstoppable that he can get stun-locked? You can still change the colour of a character's costume, however some characters feature a special blacked out version. These costumes are special costumes that may have an added effect on the character. Do you like playing as Captain America? Or how about playing as him with Mjolnir? Sick of Wolverine's X-Man suit? Why don't you don the tank top and look like huge jacked man? Now, as well crafted as the game is, it isn't of course without its bugs. There are a few that I found that I will go over in time, however one I'm going to mention now is that some characters do have bugs related to them. I found one with Black Knight which meant that his ranged space attack didn't work, and here's a pro tip, don't use him on the penultimate fight, he's awful there. The level select screen has had a revamp and the structure of story mode has been reworked. You choose a level in a ship that changes depending on what character you're using. These levels are made up of the main missions and the side mission. Choosing a side mission gives you a chance to earn extra points for lives and pickups to use later on if you can find these locations on the map again after you beat them. Some of them are secret areas where you can get a special reinforcement which I will go over in a second. The main missions will take you down the path of finding the sacred Tic Tacs. Most of the main missions are split into 2 parts with a villain to beat to get the Infinity Stone they're trying to steal. I started with Asgard and fended off an invasion force led by Surtur before helping Beta Ray Bill clear Rainbow Road for the next Mario Kart tournament. Once complete, I could access the next related level, Jotunheim. Enchantress was the big bad I had to beat for the stone, and after beating her with a tribute to Demo Man, I claimed my prize, the Reality Gem. And it's not just a fancy MacGuffin. When you do pick up an Infinity Gem, you can equip one of them to give yourself a buff that affects all the players on the screen. As you progress through the plot, more events will shape the story in minimal ways, but are we expecting some sort of blockbuster storyline from a fan game? It will also star a cast of A to Z list Marvel characters. Now as you can see, the changes are numerous and welcome, but does it still play well? Honestly, it plays better than it did back then, including with some of its minor flaws still present. As before, you get your standard combo, a jump attack, jump dive attack, running attack, grapples, knockback, quarter circle forward, super attack, ultimate attacks, and the block to do dances over the corpses of your foes. They're all fine and they function well, though trying to mix up combos and juggles with those actions sometimes doesn't work as the game won't always recognise the command being input, but you can still pull off some great manoeuvres regardless. The grab attack doesn't work on every enemy, but with the enemies that are vulnerable to it, it will be a 50-50 as to whether or not your character will actually grab them, but overall, the combat is pretty solid. The pickups remain the same as well. Health, spirit/energy, the radio and reinforcements are still present, but now drop more often so you can keep the fight going as well as staying it longer than the spider suits in Madam Web. Now, as for the previously mentioned special reinforcements, when you go to one of these secret areas, you can arm yourself with specific reinforcements if you've met the condition to unlock them. Here, I can collect the Asgardian reinforcements to take into a level and bring them into the fight when I want to, allowing players to be better prepared when taking on future levels. But that's not all these hubs are for. It's a good thing I got the Reality Gem first because it allows hidden items to be seen, and as a free tip from me, if you go to Asgard normally, you can grab the Asgardian backup. Go there as Thor, with the Reality Gem equipped, and you can permanently upgrade him with Stormbreaker, granting him a new move which gives him the ability to swap between hammer and axe in a literal flash of lightning. That joke didn't work, did it? Stan Lee can also be found in particular levels, needing saving. If you do, though I wouldn't exactly call this saving, he drops an extra life for you. Be warned that these can sometimes be hard to pick up. When it comes to the AI, it's what you can expect from his Vitor title. Oh, there goes Puck. Now don't get me wrong, the AI is much better overall, but I think it's best described as slightly faulty. The intelligence of the AI seems to fluctuate depending on who, what, and where they are. At times, this is because of an unfortunate circumstance, like here where Misty Knight spawned awkwardly and was trapped in the corner, leaving me to do all the work. Again! Other times, they just seem broken. I'm going to let this clip play while I narrate over it. As you can see, I'm laying into this frost giant, and compared to the ice trolls I'm fighting, the giant is so confused by the fact that I am using his ballsack as a speed bag, he has no clue how to respond, so I can continue my violent neutering with no worries about being hit back by him. Again though, this is only for a few of the enemies and definitely not a common occurrence. Now we come to the part I always worry about when I'm talking about a Vitor game. And yes, I know I sound like a broken record, but Vitor has always struggled to make bosses balanced and fun. In the past, an over-reliance on ad spam made bosses a chore rather than a challenge. Other times, bosses were just cheap as shit with an overactive attack rate, consistently spamming attacks or just getting in your face attacking until they landed a hit on you, or the boss was just irritating to fight in general. So how has he done here? Well, in all honesty, in some areas they're better, but in others they are worse. Ad spam is still in play, at least in part, for a fair amount of the bosses, getting in your way, accidentally grabbing them, leaving you open for attacks, and if you do defeat one of these additional enemies, they're instantly refreshed, which adds irritation to the boss fight. If the refresh was on a timer, and say, every 60 seconds, any defeated additional enemies come back in, that would be much better. To his credit though, some of the bosses you can actually deplete the additional enemies and they won't spawn back in, but this wasn't always the case. There are some difficult bosses that have the poise that is missing from the Dark Souls games, and almost any attack on them they just shrug off to hit you back. These bosses can be beaten if you cheese them, but it feels like this is the only way to beat them. It's not like we're waiting for them to do a huge attack, run in, hit them a bit, and then wait for them to do it again. Now, the notion of cheesing a boss is down to the player if it's a good or a bad thing. Personally, I couldn't give any less of a shit. The AI has tons of advantages in any game to exploit. It's time that I got one. The AI has tons of advantages that it exploits in any game. It's time that I got one. Some of them are no fun to fight at all and need a serious rework. Tusk is one such cheap as hell boss that will spawn enemies that are too small to hit with most of your attacks, as they interrupt you and stunlock you so Tusk can charge into you. But that's not to say that Vitor has not improved at all. While the bosses still have their problems, how you fight these bosses has evolved past serving them a 10-course meal of various knuckle sandwiches. Some bosses have a gimmick to them. Survive for a time, protect Professor X, that one's really hard if you're on your own, or to find the real boss in a group of fakes. These gimmicks work well and break the repetitive pattern, But I do have to mention that if one of these gimmicks is used more than once, it doesn't always match in quality. Comparing Mysterio and Enchantress as an example, Enchantress will make fake copies of herself appear for a short time, and they can hurt you. Sometimes the real one will appear instead, but you have a very, very short time to hit her if you spot her. In actuality, she's running around the arena invisible, and you have no clue where she is, as there's nothing, no sound, no visual clue to give away where she's going to appear. Using an AoE attack has a chance of hitting her, but I feel like that this could have been executed better. And it was, in the Mysterio fight. Sharing a similar premise, Mysterio will appear with either green or pink electric. The green ones are fake and won't damage you. The pink one is real, and if you can reach him in time, you can get a hit on him. This execution of this gimmick is much better, even if there is one additional enemy that keeps coming up unnecessarily just to be a pain in my arse. Finally, the presentation of the game. If there's one thing that I can say with ease about all of Vitor's games, is that the presentation and the use of the elements he's got is always very well thought out and done. Simply just looking at it, you can tell that it's better than any modern Marvel film CGI. Jokes aside, the graphics are a mixture of made from scratch, edited, traced, or repurposed assets, meaning the quality of the graphics varies by level and sprite. Not a problem for me personally because 1, it's a fan game, and 2, I always like trying to find the repurposed and edited ones. There's Silverhorns from the Power Rangers Fighting Edition, the Sentinel is lifted from X-Men Child of the Atom, the Worm monsters are lifted straight from Splatterhouse, this stage is from Weapon Lord. Despite the difference in sprite quality, even the worst looking ones still suit the role, and they've been used and purposed very well. And with all these assets, the army of enemies to beat the shit out of is as varied as it is large. The well-crafted levels take place all over the Marvel Universe, and each one has been crafted to feel and act unique, with some focusing more on platforming and some focusing more on a good old-fashioned beatdown. When it comes to sound and music, you are going to find familiar tracks and noises more frequently than you will the graphics. Some of these noises are original. I think Vitor got some of his friends to do voice acting for some of the characters. But like I say, most of the sounds you're going to recognise. And again, it's not a problem for me, because I like trying to spot them and figure out where they've come from. Like how I spotted this music from Battletoads Double Dragon crossover. This music is from Killer Instinct. And some of the enemies that use guns sound like a Star Wars blaster. Overall, each of the assets is creatively used and thought out well to make it audibly appealing as it is visually. And that is to say, fantastic. If, however, you are bored of story mode or just want to take a break from it, and you need some good old nostalgia to remember the good times before you were an adult and life got a lot less worth living, you can play some fan-made remakes of retro titles like the X-Men SNES game, do a Streets of Rage crossover, or replay one of Vitor's earlier popular titles, First Alliance. All of which support 4 players, and all characters can be used in all of these modes. And of course, once you complete story mode, you then have the Danger Room, which works as the level select, which also features spaceflight practice, arcade fight where you take on 2 bosses at once, and boss rush where you fight the bosses one at a time, which broke after I beat Nimrod. But these bugs can be reported to Vitor in one of his social platforms, and he will get onto it. Because he actually gives a shit about his product. Isn't that right, Bethesda? Now, having played the entire story mode and tried out the other modes, I can say with certainty that since its first iteration, it has improved in leaps and bounds. From start to finish, it was a long rainbow road of violence, super smashing, and great arcade style fun. True, there are a few bumps here and there, and that hurt the experience a bit, but not so much the game is unenjoyable, or even broken. A lot of passion and love has gone into this, just like Vitor's other titles, and it shows in every aspect. And the best part? It's 100% free, and you can download it from his website. If you're interested, you know where the links are going to be by now, and let me know in the comments if you've actually played it. And while you're at it, be sure to send Vitor some love too. And as you do, I thank you all for watching, everyone. Remember, you're always welcome, at the Spectrum.